Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the Dixie Fire West Zone Community Meeting. My name is Dan Olson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 3. We know the community has many questions regarding the Dixie Fire, and we appreciate your submissions on social media. We have several experts gathered today to provide you with an update and answer many of your questions. To start out, I'd like to provide some perspective on the impacts of wildfire on the residents across our state. California continues to experience a very significant fire season. Federal, state, tribal, and local agencies currently have deployed more than 9,800 firefighters. These men and women are working tirelessly both day and night. Since January 1st, 959,611 acres have burned across our state. This is an increase of 679,726 acres for the same time frame last year. Of these acres, the Dixie Fire has burned 515,756 acres, is 31% contained, and currently stands as the second largest fire in California's history, and also the 14th most destructive wildfire in our state's history. To put these numbers into perspective, at more than 510,000 acres, the Dixie Fire has burned an area larger than Los Angeles and New York combined. The fire perimeter stretches more than 400 miles long and equates to the distance from Lake Tahoe down to Palm Springs. Working to battle this fire, we have 6,160 personnel assigned to the incident. On the ground, we have nearly 520 fire engines assigned, as well as 199 dozers and 81 crews. These firefighters are also working tirelessly, along with our air assets, which is 20 helicopters that have delivered 176,000 gallons of water today alone. While heavier smoke over the flames and fire has hindered our ability to fly at times, when the air clears, these resources are able to see and deliver drops to identified areas. The fire continues to impact the lives of the residents across the counties of Butte, Tehama, Plumas, and Lassen. 31,000 residents have been evacuated from their homes, and 334 of which are staying in 4 temporary shelters established around the fire. Significant threats continue for our cultural and natural resources. Damage inspectors are very busy inspecting residential and commercial properties in the burn area. As of this evening, they have determined 1,109 structures have been destroyed and 72 have sustained damage. I'm happy to report that they have also inspected 1,421 properties that have been saved and show no signs of damage. It is important to note that these inspections are ongoing and statistics will progress as containment of the fire grows. Now, with an update on weather, I'd like to introduce incident meteorologist Joe Goudsworth.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. It is both my honor and pleasure to be here this evening. And hopefully I will be able to deliver some news that you want to hear. And if you did want to hear that we do have some rain in the forecast, then I do have some good news. We have seen some showers and thunderstorms across the incident today. Again, probably not as much as we need, definitely not as much as we need, but we'll take what we can get at this point. Some of these storms, though, did produce some lightning. Most of the lightning was between clouds, but there were a few strokes that did make it down to the ground, so we'll definitely be looking at those moving forward. Now, as far as the overall weather pattern is concerned, we're looking at one more day of thunderstorm activity, and that will be tomorrow. The coverage of thunderstorms is going to be a little bit more than we saw today across the incident. So we're going to go in with about a 20% chance of seeing thunderstorms for tomorrow. Some of these storms, once again, will produce those gusty outflow winds of maybe 30 to 40 miles an hour. They're also going to produce some rain directly under the storm themselves. The biggest thing we're worried about, with the exception of those gusty and erratic winds, will be lightning strikes. If the lightning strikes occur away from the core of the storm where the rain is occurring, they obviously could lead to additional strikes. So we will definitely be watching that moving forward over the next couple of days. Once we get past this thunderstorm event tomorrow, things are going to be much more quieter over the next couple of days moving forward. We're still going to be hot, we're still going to be dry, and we're still not going to see a whole lot of wind, but as we go into early next week, we're definitely looking at a change in the weather pattern, and that's something we'll discuss at a later time. But as far as tomorrow is concerned, expect to see more of those afternoon showers and thunderstorms. Be aware they are going to put out some gusty winds, a little bit of rain, and unfortunately, probably a little bit more lightning as well. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Operations Section Chief Mark Brunton.
Good evening. So I'm going to just take you around the horn with the incident. Cal Fire Incident Management Team 3 is responsible for the west zone of the incident. Our partners to the east zone is Interagency Incident Management Team 4. So just starting with our 3 sectors, and our sector in the Butte sector, it's in a full mop-up mode that is turned over to the Butte unit, and they are conducting those operations throughout and looking very good. They've got into a repopulation mode of many of those communities, so that area is really buttoning up very nice. Moving back into the Westwood sector, which is pretty much the middle sector of our entire fire, starting off to the west is in Division Juliet, was one of our key areas. It was an area that that would open a door if the fire were to burn in that area into a very nasty area as far as the topography, the heavy fuels and so forth, and would carry the fire into Tehama County and threaten those communities. So we had a very robust plan to establish strong control lines and to plan and conduct a very complex, large-scale fire operation. This happened over the past few days since Team 3 took over the fire back in, this past Sunday. And I'm happy to report that was pulled off, completed just yesterday, and now we are in a mode of mopping up all the hot spots along that line to button that up and make that and render that safe so that we can close that door of any further fire spread into that area and into Tehama County. Throughout continuing the Westwood sector, we have on the western shore of Lake Elminor, we have Chester and those communities. For the number of days we've been doing heavy mop up at all those communities, Chester and so forth. And so that is to render it safe so that once that is done, then we move into the next phase of a repopulation plan. There's many steps to that plan before we simply let the public in to repopulate. We make sure all the pillars of life are ready and ready for them. Everything from power to water and all those necessities to move back in the area. So from a fire standpoint, we're there. And in coming days, when a repopulation occurs, we are going to keep some resources in there for calls for service. People are going to see smokes that are non-threatening, but are probably unnerving nevertheless after people have gone through this event. So we will have resources in there to mitigate those issues and concerns in the coming days. Continuing on into the East Shore is looking very good. There's been a lot of preparation of those structures, those communities, if the fire were to advance into those communities. We have a lot of resources in there. They're very well, and when I mean preparation, as far as triaging the structures, making sure they're prepared to be able to, if the fire were to advance, give us the best shot at structure defense, have the crews that are in there oriented to those areas. A lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts, but we're very comfortable. We put in a lot of control lines, dozer lines, and so forth, not only primary but contingency lines to protect those communities, those structures. And basically, that's everything south of Highway 36. Moving further to the east, that's when we started getting into our line of between the responsibility between Incident Management Team 4 and 3. So there is an area like Dyer Mountain and so forth on that periphery border area. Therefore, both are sharing resources, collaboratively working together on a plan. Dyer Mountain area has been a key one that we've been working on. A lot of dozer lines put in, a lot of control lines put in. Some of that, some small burn operations to strengthen those lines. We have gone direct in some of those areas. So there's a ton of work going in there, and we are just finally in the process of completing that to close that door for any fire spread to advance further north that would threaten those communities in that Hamilton branch area. So we're feeling very confident in what the work that we're doing there. Just a lot of work, a lot of resources there from both sides, both teams. Moving around into where the fire goes into the sheep fire, that goes more into the eastern zone. But again, we've worked collaboratively. We've shared a lot of resources, surged a lot of resources to assist them. And I just was able to fly the fire today, able to get in there. A lot of smoky conditions, but what I was able to see was looking very good. So we're very comfortable with that. And then the community of Janesville, that is an area that we've been on our radar for a long time. We put in very large contingency lines above the community to protect it. We've surged a lot of resources in there, and we have a very robust structured defense plan that was developed over the past day or so that we can implement as needed if the fire were to reach a decision point. And we would surge resources from throughout the incident. Even though we're spread pretty thin resource-wise, we have a plan, and we have been doing it every day to assist the East Zone, surge resources in there to protect the community and provide a robust structured defense, not only on the ground but also in the air. So we're feeling very comfortable with that, have a good plan in place, and we have had resources within that community to assess and evaluate and to protect that throughout. Moving into our Lassen sector, one of the areas of concern has been Warner Valley. We've had a lot of work in the Warner Valley. We had a fire established a couple days ago in Kelly Mountain. Tough, steep terrain, heavy fuels, and with these burn conditions that we've been experiencing, erratic fire behavior, we were able to pump resources into that area for aggressive structured defense and protection. They've been working in there continuously to defend the structures. Once the fire has been past that and some of the defensive firing has taken place to protect those structures, we've had a lot of success, especially in the upper part of the valley, to protect all those structures within there. Within the valley directly itself, we have not at this point in time seen any destruction of any structures. And again, we have a lot of resources in there. However, within the past hour, due to the outflow winds that we've been experiencing, and even though we've been prepared for that and with a lot of resources in there, fire activity has increased, erratic fire behavior, fast-moving fire, and so fortunately we've had time to prepare those structures for defense. And we have an active firefight, running gun battle, if you will, right now, just before I came on camera, in that area to protect and save those structures. So that's an ongoing fight that we've got going as we do throughout the entire fire. Moving into our Branch 13, which is into the national park, we have a very good plan working in the park. Fire activity is not very erratic at this point, especially when I flew it earlier this afternoon. Creeping fire. Good plan in place working with the national park to not only meet the needs of suppression of the fire, but to meet their policies that are required to follow within the park itself. So we have a lot of good work being done in there. Some of the structures, the cabins, we've done a lot of prep on those, and we'll continue to protect those. Moving outside of the park, we have a lot of lines being put in. Highway 44 is not being threatened at this point. We're a long way from it. As we work down 821, we conducted a couple firing operations last night. A lot of success in helping us to put some control within that. Division uniform, in which we have a lot of timberland in there. We've been working with the timber companies to address their concerns without trying to, with a large burn project, to shorten that burn project. We've come to an agreement on how we can try to do that to meet everybody's needs, to not only protect their assets, but also to protect the assets of the community and provide a good line of defense. So we are currently, right now as we speak, putting in some good lines, shortening that up, and then assess if we are going to do or need to do a burn operation to reduce the progress of that fire. So again, a collaborative effort to take care of the needs of the community and of the timber company. Overall, seen a lot of success in the past few days since we've had the fire. Aircraft, because of the smoke conditions, has been a roller coaster ride as far as what we can do as far as flying aircraft to make sure it's safe and effective. Not only the fixed wing, but the rotor wing. We allocated and relocated a copter base near Eagle Lake, and by where the two bases are, training the smoke conditions, we've been able to find that we can fly the rotor wing most times, one way or the other on the fire. And when we do, we are utilizing that as a force multiplier to achieve our objectives, support our troops on the ground, and take care of our mission to put this fire to bed.
Thank you, Mark. Our next speaker is Brian Newman, Fire Behavior Analyst.
Okay, good evening. So today we had a change in weather that we've seen different from the last few days. With the smoke kind of clearing out, with those thunderstorms coming over the fire area today, it cleared out that smoke and allowed for more fire activity than we've seen over the past handful of days. Overall, we had a southeast wind flow across the fire, so down towards the branch 5 area and out towards the Butte sector. And what that allowed was for the fire activity to kind of increase across the fire here, especially on the northern portions up here towards the national park and north of Westwood. Overall, most of the activity that we saw was internal in the fire area, burning out some of the heavy pockets of fuel that were in there that were left over from the more moderate burning that we had seen earlier this week. We did have some activity, as you just heard from our operations chief, along the western flank here up into the park area, and we expect that to continue tonight as the clear air continues and the wind continues to be an effect for us. Overall, the fuels are so dry and the topography is very rugged, and it allows for the fire to burn relatively easily just because of those factors altogether. Tomorrow, as we get into the day, it's going to be a similar day that we saw today in regards to the clear air and the smoke lifting out, but the slight difference is our winds will be more out of the southwest. So what that's going to do is increase our activity, especially on the northern portion of the fire within the park, north of Westwood, and along towards the eastern flank of this fire. Those will play into what the plans that have been going on overall with the burning operations and the like. And so mostly we'll see internal burning like we saw today, with some potential challenges to the line just due to the topography, the dry fuels, and the increase in wind and the clear air. As we get down on the lower portion here on the lower Westwood sector, closer to Westwood proper, with that burning operation going on in there and the activity that's in there, we should expect to see a little bit more activity in there as well. But hopefully our spotting will be relatively short range, no more than a quarter to half a mile in those sections in there, as it's slightly less topographic than some of the more portions further up to the north, which has been more challenging for us just because of the steep topography overall. So as we get into tomorrow evening, we expect that these thunderstorms will start to clear out, the calmer air will settle over the fire, and we won't have any big down canyon pushes or anything that should be unexpected for the crews out there. And overall, hope using all of our fire modeling tools, be able to express to all the crews and that are going out there tomorrow to give them an idea of where this fire is going to go, the intensity that it's going to burn at, and the ability for them to get in and make the control efforts that are needed.
Our next speaker is Jay Lusher, Federal Agency Representative.
Good evening. We'd like to thank all the firefighters that have come to this area to protect the lands on the Lassen National Forest and Lassen National Park. Firefighters from the local area, across the state of California, and across the country have shown up to protect the places that it means so much to the local community and people across America. We have firefighters as far away from Hawaii that have come in and are working day and night, digging in the dirt, sleeping on the ground, and doing everything they can to stop the fire. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lassen County Sheriff Dean Groudon.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lassen County Sheriff Dean Groudon. Happy to be before you here today, or have this opportunity. I want to first cover some of the evacuation orders and warnings. And for Lassen County, there are no changes today. The communities affected by evacuation orders currently are Westwood, Clear Creek, Pinetown, and the cabins around Silver Lake. Evacuation warnings, there is a large area of Lassen County on the western, southwestern corner that's under warnings, as well as the community of Janesville. And the area around Janesville, it's west of State Route 395, south of Bass Hill, and north of Janesville Grade. But for full details, I recommend you log in to community.zonehaven.com. Again, that's community.zonehaven.com, and you can see real-time mapping related to our evacuation orders and warnings. For the people who have been evacuated for those communities, Westwood, Pinetown, Clear Creek, and additionally the Janesville area, because some people chose to leave when we issued the warning. We have personnel patrolling your areas, 24/7. People from Lassen County Sheriff's Office, the Police Department, Lassen County Probation, CDCR, Forest Service, CAL FIRE, CHP, our local DA's office, and Alameda County Sheriff's Office is also helping us patrol those areas to protect your property. The animals in that Westwood area, we had been feeding the animals. Yesterday, we started in partnership with Lassen County Public Works, the staff from the Lassen County Animal Shelter, and with assistance from Animal Control from the city of Susanville, we started to move animals out of that Westwood area for a couple of reasons. One is that proximity of the fire to that area, as well as just the sheer numbers of animals that were left in that area. So we're trying to move them out. We've been coordinating that with the owners of those animals. Many of those animals have been returned to the owners, and if the owners can't provide shelter and housing for them right now, the county is doing that on their behalf. People needing assistance with animals in the area, please need to call our Sheriff's Office Dispatch Center. That's a 24-hour line at 530-257-6121. Lassen County is still maintaining shelters for people who had to evacuate for these fires. The primary one is at Lassen Community College, and the secondary is at Lassen High School. As you heard from the operations chief, they've fire personnel have put countless hours into protecting our communities, constructing line and so on, and I can't appreciate enough how much we appreciate their effort. Now tomorrow, the undersheriff will be up here in a minute talking about the plan to repopulate Chester. I'm going to talk about some of the details from our side of that effort. So around 10 a.m. we'll have deputies, and that effort from our side will involve the Lassen County Sheriff's Office, Susanville, California Highway Patrol, and the Susanville Police Department. But we will have officers at 10 a.m. at the community church at 1400 Numa, and that's where if people are in the greater Susanville area or Lassen County and they want to return to Chester, and that repopulation zone will be described by the Plumas County Undersheriff. But if those people wish to return, they need to start gathering at 10 a.m. at the community church in Susanville at 1400 Numa Drive. If that location fills up, a secondary location will be the Assembly of God Church, but people need to go to the community church at 1400 Numa around 10 a.m., and we all have staff there organizing those people. If that becomes full, then we'll have people directing people to the Assembly of God Church. At Lassen College, where the primary shelter is, we will have staff up there at 10 a.m. starting to organize people there that want to return to Chester, as well as having a bus available for people who need a ride back home. And I know we did a survey tonight up at Eagle Lake. I know we have a number of people from Chester at Eagle Lake. Those people should stage at A1 and 36 starting around 10 a.m. But we're going to try to have a deputy go up to Eagle Lake and organize those people down there and lead them down. And the goal is around 11 o'clock to escort people through the closed zone on Highway 36 back to Chester. And like I said, the Plumas Undersheriff will give details, but I want to say that that's a closed area of our county currently, and this plan is subject to cancellation if the weather doesn't stay in our favor. So everyone needs to understand that this is the plan, but that plan may change if we have a change in the fire in that Highway 36 corridor. I've received a number of calls from people who are anxious to return home, particularly the Westwood area, but the fire still poses a threat to those communities, all those communities in that mandatory evacuation area. We work with the members of the team and evaluate evacuation warnings and orders each morning, each day, and are constantly talking about when it might be safe, but it is not safe at this time. When it is, we will and we'll be happy to let you go home, but right now it is not safe to return home to those areas. In closing, the people from Northeastern California are very resilient, and now is the time to show our strength. I encourage everyone to be patient and positive and focus on supporting each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Our next speaker is Chad Herman, Undersheriff for Plumas County.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Chad Herman. I'm the Undersheriff for the Plumas County Sheriff's Office. A press release was issued today through our agency for immediate release. Effective at 11 a.m. tomorrow, August 13th, the following areas are being changed from a mandatory evacuation order to an evacuation warning. Chester from the Highway 36 to Highway 89 junction, east to the west side of the causeway, both sides of 36 through Chester to the edge of Lake Almanor and the north portion where the dirt road of Feather River Drive meets. That is Zone 8A. Lake Almanor West and Prattville. This includes Prattville, Lake Almanor West, Big Meadows, Rocky Point Campground, and the Canyon Dam Boat Launch. This is Plumas Zone 5 and 5B. Updated evacuation map in regards to Chester and Lake Almanor West and Prattville. Entry to residents here will be an escort from Susanville at 11 a.m. tomorrow. Sheriff Groudon spoke about that earlier. The reason this will occur at 11 a.m. tomorrow is because there is going to be ongoing highway safety on Highway 36. The escorts will begin at 11 a.m. at the Lassen Community College shelter for people that have been evacuated to that area. The next stop will be at the community church in Susanville at 1400 Numa Road. It is important that you, as Sheriff Groudon stated, are prepared and ready and at those locations for this to be a smooth transition. If you are unable to attend the escort, entry still will be permitted on Highway 36, but to the west side of Chester. Unfortunately, due to safety reasons, we will not be able to escort from Greenville or Quincy on Highway 89. Highway 36 west of Chester will be open. Traffic control points will be established at 36 and Melissa, the end of the pavement on Feather River Drive, and the north areas of Chester to prevent access into additional hazard areas. People entering those areas, returning to their homes, need to be aware that Seneca District Hospital is still closed, including the emergency department. They are in the process of opening, but this will take some time and require approval from the California Department of Public Health. In regards to water for those areas, the Chester PUD water system is safe to drink and has been tested. West Almanor Mutual Water Company water system is safe to drink. For the areas along West Shore, Lake Almanor, including Prattville, power outages may have resulted in the loss of water system pressure, and the water quality may have been compromised. Residents should be prepared to use bottled water and/or boil their water until testing can be completed to show that the water is safe to drink. For more information regarding the drinking water quality, please contact your water service provider. Essential services in those areas will likely be delayed, but they are starting back up again. When residents do return to the burned areas, it is important to follow protocols on the reentry provided by Plumas County Environmental Health. Only those within the residence will have access at this time. For more information, you can visit www.plumascounty.us. It'll lead you to the fire prevention through the Dixie Fire Information. While we understand that evacuated residents are understandably eager to get back to their homes and properties, the Dixie Fire still is active, and the public must remain out of the mandatory evacuation zones until the orders are downgraded to warnings or lifted. Please do not attempt to enter the restricted areas until evacuation orders are lifted. You can determine your zone and see the evacuation status by entering your address on the evacuation maps located at tinyearl.com V-Drape 24. For more information, visit the Plumas County Facebook page and the links that will direct you to the Dixie Fire Information Services. With these areas opening up, it is also important that residents understand that the residential areas are accessible. However, the lands operated and maintained by the National Forest Service are currently not at this time. Thank you. Keep your chins up. We will get through this together.
Our next speaker is Scott Packwood, CAL FIRE Unit Chief for the Lassen Modoc Unit.
Good evening, Scott Packwood, Unit Chief, Lassen Modoc Unit for CAL FIRE. I just want to acknowledge all the work that's been done on this fire. It's been a very complex incident. It's impacted communities in 5 different counties, including Butte, Plumas, Lassen, Tehama, and eastern Shasta County. So we are very conscientious of the fact that it's impacted the tourism industry and the summertime travel and the recreation of all those communities in the northeastern part of California. We're trying to get everybody back and establish some normalcy, and we're making good progress on that. I really want to acknowledge and appreciation to the citizens of the area that have tolerated the influx of 5,000 or 6,000 firefighters coming into a couple communities, the increased traffic with all the fire equipment, and everybody's patience with all the work that's going on. I especially want to acknowledge and thank the law enforcement agencies that have assisted with all the traffic control and road closures, Caltrans and county roads, and public works agencies that have assisted us with that. They're putting in long hours and staffing those road closures, as well as the California National Guard and other entities that have been assisting all the fire agencies with the work that's going on out here. So again, thank you to all of our cooperating agencies, and everybody have a safe and a good evening.
Thank you, Chief. Our next speaker is Incident Commander Billy C.
Yeah, good evening. My name's Billy C. I'm the Incident Commander for CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 3. Obviously, this fire has been going on almost a month now. It's impacted the 4 counties, as you heard from Chief Packwood. It's impacted 2 forests, a national park, multiple smaller communities throughout these 4 counties. There's been numerous evacuation warnings and orders put in place, road closures put in place, and it's impacted all the citizens in this general area. This fire started on the western slope of the mountain range and has burned almost to the eastern slope now. None of us ever imagined that we would have an incident this large that would move from the western slope to the eastern slope. Obviously, there's been many questions that's been posed related to specific communities in and around the west zone and down in the east zone. In an attempt to answer most of those questions, we're going to have Operations Section Chief, Chief Brunton, answer some of those. But I do understand the need to provide accurate and detailed information when we can provide it to you. There's numerous communities out here. We're in a current firefight out there in multiple fronts, just due to the weather that Mother Nature is throwing at us right now. We do have high erratic winds pushing the fire around. We have many resources surged into many locations on this incident right now, trying to hold what we got and continue to gain ground. Those firefighters are working extremely hard to protect all your properties and contain this fire as soon as possible. Thank you.
Next, we're going to be going into our question and answer segment. We're going to start out with Operations Section Chief Mark Brunton. Mark, as Chief C had mentioned, we've got questions in regards to geographic areas, some of them pertaining a lot to the Chester area. The first one is, when will Chester open back up? We covered some of that, but more specifically, they're inquiring about the Lake Almanar Peninsula, that it's not been directly threatened in recent days, and 2 of the branches of the fire are generally moving away. They're looking for a comment in regards to the threat level and protection efforts would be appreciated.
Okay, so for the peninsula area and around the east side of the lake, again, a lot of structures in there, a lot of homes and so forth, threatened originally by both sides, from the north and from the south. And as I mentioned in my earlier Around the Horn, is that we have had on both sides a lot of control efforts to protect those structures. So one of the things is that we've put a lot of resources within those communities to be able to assess, to prepare the structures, to put together plans to protect the structures if the fire were to enter into that community. Fire has not entered into those communities. However, we've kept those resources in there as guardians of those communities. So from the south, as I mentioned, in the Dyer Mountain area, and there's just a lot of country in there. Some of it's very difficult to put in control lines to fight fire in, but a collaborative effort between our zone and the Forest Service zone for Team 4, working together with our resources, collaboratively putting together plans, collaboratively working together, sharing resources, have been able to put in a number of control lines, not only primary lines, but secondary lines, contingency lines, not only dozer, hand lines, to go direct where they can go direct on the fire line to suppress the fire, some of it because of the conditions of the fuels, the thickness of the fuels, the topography, and that sort of things. It's not practical to go directly on the fire line, so they had to back off a little bit, and some of that they did small burn operations to strengthen the lines. So there's just been a ton of work in there over the past number of days to tie in all of this and to create a door from any further northern expansion of the fire. And right now we're looking very good in there. They continue to strengthen those lines and work in there, so we have a lot of resources in there actively working to make sure that's all buttoned up. From the north down, as I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of timberland in here. So not only the protection of the structures, but the protection of those resources of the timberland to protect it, instead of just going in and doing large fire and backburn operation, is to try to meet the needs of both the community and the timber operations. So we've come up with a good plan in which we can put some line. We've gone direct where we can, but the conditions are such that sometimes with lack of resources, sometimes even with resources, that they'll go in, they'll try to go direct on the fire line like we traditionally do, and things have changed within the environment. Firefighting has changed dramatically in probably the past 5 years, my 35-year career, that we have not experienced. We've had to change our strategy. We've had to change our tactics. We've had to change the way we do business, and the traditional ways are not working. We go in there, we put a lot of time, effort into that, and it's flushed away because the conditions are such that we start having a lot of spot fires. We get rapid fire runs, erratic fire behavior, and we have to back out with our personnel for their personal safety, and they give it a good go, but then everything is just all for naught. So we've had to find a happy medium to try to adjust what kind of tactics we use, what kind of overall strategy we employ, and meet all the needs of all the different shareholders. This is a very difficult task to try to keep everybody happy, and not everybody's going to be happy sometimes with the way we combat this. So we try to work with all of our stakeholders, but the number one thing is life protection of the citizens, life protection of our personnel, and then the protection of property and resources. So in the northern part of the division uniform, today we've adjusted some of our lines. We've controlled, and as we speak right now, putting in some very strong control lines. And the fire behavior as we speak has become erratic. I've been getting messages while offline, and we are battling significantly in this area, especially along the 821, to hold what we've got and to continue our operation. However, we feel very confident that we're going to be able to keep that fire from crossing 36 and into those communities. However, if by chance it does, we have a very strong contingent of resources in that area to take care of and protect those structures.
Thank you, Mark. One of the other questions we have is in regards to an area referred to as Big Meadow, Prattville, and 89 area.
Certainly. So Big Meadow, a lot of questions about that. I'd like to have been able to answer that sooner. Again, stretched thin with resources and trying to make safe a lot of the other areas. But we did have somebody go and assess that as of about 2 hours ago, and Big Meadow is looking very good. In fact, fire hasn't even impacted that area. So structures that are in there, they're standing. At this point in time, no impact to that area, so that's looking very good. Same around Prattville. All those communities are looking very good, not impacted by fire.
And then last question in regards to area updates. We've got a lot in the Warner Valley, and I know we've touched on that, but folks, as Chief C had mentioned, are looking specifically. Some of the areas in question are looking for update is Lee Camp, Old Lee Ranch, and an area of Pole Bridge north of Warner Valley.
Right. So most of that is in the upper part, I guess you could say, of Warner Valley, Lee Camp, and so forth. Before the team took over, there was the day of the over 100,000 acre run. And that area is kind of large. We get a lot of questions about the Warner Valley and not exactly being from the area. I've become educated as to what does that area truly encompass. And it's a very large area in general. It depends on, you have to really auger down as to what exactly area are you talking about within that area. So during the big push, which was further down, Feather River Drive and that sort of thing, there were some structures destroyed by the fire, some structures damaged by the fire. Our inspection teams have gone through, they're conducting still inspections. So there were some that were lost to the fire, but there were some that were saved. But again, that was a huge push of the fire that one day, and that there's not a lot that a lot of the resources could do based on that push. But further into Warner Valley itself, further up, as I stated earlier, we did have a lot of structures within there that they were able to save. We've been active in suppression activities throughout that valley, preparation of the structures before the fire came, so that when the fire did hit that area, that our personnel were able to save those structures. We've had just a lot of preparation putting in lines. Some of those lines held, some due to like the conditions I said earlier, the fire behavior very erratic, spotting conditions. Basically, they had to fall back and go to secondary lines that they'd been able to establish if they were able to get those in time. But as we speak right now, those structures well defended. However, just earlier, we've had another big push due to the weather conditions with the winds, the outflows from the thunder cells, that it's gotten very active in that area. We've had to pull back our personnel, readjust, and they're re-engaging into that area so that we can use the maximum effort of our personnel. They're not too scattered, but we can focus our attack strategy, and they are actively in there. I will tell you that in a lot of these problem areas, we have very good personnel, but in these areas that we have prioritized, we have to, triage, if you will, find the areas that we can make the most impact, have the most success, and protect, again, our life, property, and then the resources. We have our very best people leading those charges, best people that are in there suppressing and fighting that fire. And I will tell you, they're doing everything they possibly can to protect those structures in that area. So it is an active firefight. It is a running gun fight, if you will, but they are doing absolutely everything they can. And we'll see at the end of the next day or so, based on these weather conditions, the success rate. But as we hear on camera, in that upper part of the valley, we have had a lot of success of saving those structures.
Thank you. Our next question is, the Forest Service just closed the campgrounds on Hat Creek and Old Station. Does this mean the fire is headed this way? We who live in the area would like more information. To answer that question, I'm going to defer it to Federal Agency Rep. Jay Lesher.
So as you heard Operations Section Chief talk about the conditions that are out there, more than 20 years of drought have made the fuel so dry and so unpredictable that our traditional tactics have not been successful. Although the firefighters are working very close to the line to put in our primary containment lines, we are also building alternate containment lines between the fire and the Old Station Hat Creek area. And we are building contingency lines along the Highway 44 corridor. We have closed those Forest Service campgrounds so that we can begin doing mechanical work along the highways. We do not anticipate the fire coming to those areas anytime soon, but we want to be prepared, as this year has been very unpredictable. Thank you.
For our next question, I'd like to defer it to Chief Billy C., and it's in regards to suppression repair in the area of Jonesville.
All right, so the fire suppression repair plan is going to be a multifaceted plan between multiple agencies. Currently, we're in the process of developing that plan, both on the state and federal. including working with Cal OES on some of the recovery process. It's going to be a long duration process to develop the needs for the landscape out there. Obviously, 500,000 acres, you're looking at over 400 miles of fire line that's going to have some type of fire suppression repair done to it to prevent erosion and to bring the landscape back to its natural state. We will be working with Cal OES. We will be looking at major waterways and the watershed areas to ensure that we try to prevent mudslides and contamination to the drinking water and the waterways going downstream from here. So just yesterday, we had the director of OES met with local officials, both here in Lassen, Plumas, and multiple county or city officials, just to discuss some of the recovery process and what the watershed will look like. So as far as the fire line suppression repair, there's going to be more to come, but there will be a strong contingent of equipment between multiple agencies that will be working long duration to ensure it gets completed.
Thank you, Chief. And I'm just making sure we're capturing a majority of those. And with that, I believe that's going to conclude tonight's community meeting for the Dixie Fire West Zone. Please tune in tomorrow night to the Lassen National Forest Facebook page, where they will be providing an update on the East Zone for the Dixie Fire. We also, as Sheriff mentioned, we invite you to the community meeting on Saturday, August 14th at 7 p.m. This will be hosted by the Community Church at 1400 Numa Road here in Susanville. And finally, for up-to-date information on the Dixie Fire, visit fire.ca.gov/incidents or the ncweb.ncwg.gov. Thank you and have a good night.